Well, not really.
No, it's sloppy wet out there.
Sloppy
man.
wet. Yes, but it is warmer at least, like 37 degrees. We're living in a slush bucket. It's like a big old Slurpee outside.
Yeah, it's like exactly. I know how a straw feels. No.
Right. It's a world of 7-Eleven. Well, thanks for being with me on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about medical marijuana here in Michigan. Let you guys know what's been happening down at the Genesee County Compassion Club and whatever else we want to talk about, right? So I got John in the studio here with me making it happen today. He was able to venture out into this slush bucket. Yeah.
Feet are so wet too. My shoe just, I think it wicks in every part of moisture it can get.
Kind of cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry. Yes, and my feet are just so because the shoes I'm wearing right now. If I walk just a little distance in the snow, it just it wicks it right in.
You need some slickers.
Yeah, I know, but they don't usually have good contact with. They don't have good soles.
You had the chain ones.
I know, but those they wear out. They wear out because they're stretched over.
Walking on a spring.
And you walk on them and they just wear out. The rubber wears out on them. So
what are you gonna do, John? What are you gonna do? You need some Family Dollar bags and some duct tape. All right. All right, I want to let you guys know what's been happening down at the G. We had an awesome time last weekend on Saturday with the Garage Sale Band. You can check out our Facebook page if you want to catch some of that action if you weren't able to make it out. We had a great evening. Lots of new, fresh faces in the club. It was good to see everybody make it out. We had horrible weather, so definitely a big thank you for everybody who was willing to brave it and come out anyways. We had certainly a great time with the Garage Sale Band. Those guys are awesome musicians, and it was a blast having them there, man. It was a great night. Had some special food items on the menu, so it was good stuff. Good times all around. We have another late night event coming up. I want to make mention of it. It is February 2nd, I do believe. Go to our Facebook page to get more information. But it is the Darren McCarty Slapstick Comedy Tour at the club on the 2nd. Like I said, February 2nd. It is a late night event. It starts at 8:30. It is open to the public, and it's at the G. So tickets are on sale now at the club. They're $30 in advance. I believe $35 at the door. And again, like I said, it's open to the public. So you'll be able to sit there, chill, enjoy all of your freedoms, and enjoy Darren McCarty and all of his good friends for the Slapstick Comedy Tour. So shout out to Darren for coming up and making it happen. We're super proud to be able to have him, and as a member, of course, but also this time as an entertainer. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Up close and personal, it doesn't get much better than this. So if you guys are hockey fans, you're Darren fans, or you just want to get out and have some fun, this is going to be the night for you. So February 2nd, mark your calendars. Hopefully you have better weather going on. But even if we don't, you can just come on out anyways, right? Brave the weather, all right? But seriously, check out our Facebook page. The event's listed there. You can get more details. Invite your friends and family. Show is 21 and over for adults and 18 and over if you have your med card. All right? So get your tickets for that. We do only have a limited amount. Once they're gone, they're gone. So that's it. We're not trying to treat you like you're flying Delta or something. All right? Delta. All right. Other things we got going on. Of course, we have the soup kitchen. Don't forget about that. And I know we're already talking about getting stuff ready for our 420 party. So we'll be talking about that in the future, of course. But anyway, moving on, I want to get to some of the events and things that have been happening here in Michigan. Talk about medical marijuana, what's been going on in the nation. We've had some kind of neat things happening. First of all, I want to mention the amazing, the original, the man himself, John Sinclair. Pretty much like the pioneer of medical marijuana reform here in Michigan, or marijuana reform in general, really. Anyways, he's a stalwart, he's a myth, he's a legend, and he's filed a lawsuit against Michigan, the state of Michigan, and specifically against Michigan for their drug schedule. So you guys are well aware that there is a national drug scheduling that was put forth by like Richard Nixon back in the 70s. Your states have their own individual drug list, if you will. Approved ones for medication, ones that have no medicinal value, so on and so forth. Just basically copies the federal drug scheduling, but it's also something that exists here in Michigan's own law. So Mr. John Sinclair filed a lawsuit against the state of Michigan saying that, hey, you need to reclassify marijuana. It clearly does have medical value and has no business being listed as a Schedule I on Michigan's list of prohibited substances. Okay? So simple enough. Obviously, John Sinclair has been making headways for 40 years now, and he's not stopping. I've also been told that John Sinclair is in the process of opening up a social club down in Detroit for adults 21 and over, recreational use. and he's making it happen. You know, he had to hide out in Amsterdam for a couple decades, but I'm glad Michigan's his home, and he's come back here, and he's proud to be a part of it. And kudos to John Sinclair. All right, I love that guy, and I hope his lawsuit kicks some ass, because wouldn't that be cool to see Michigan be like one of the first states to reschedule marijuana, to lead the way in the nation, to set the precedent of what needs to be done on a federal level? I think it'd make headlines, to say none the least. All right, first rant of the day. I got a rant about the roads. I mean, come on, Genesee County Road Commission. What the hell, man? We've had like one snowstorm this year, and you guys couldn't get out and really do much about it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Do we have a road commission, don't we, John?
You know, I think we do. I mean,
are they part of the federal government shutdown?
You know, they do get federal funding. I know that in pretty much everything the state does.
I'm just joking around, but seriously, I mean, come on, guys, get with the program. And on top of that, another little side rant here. What the hell with all the stoplights in this town? All right, Flint, the population's not what it quite used to be. Okay, especially if we look back like 30 years ago when you put all those stoplights everywhere. Good gravy. I'm at the corner of, Davison and Dorr, and the left-hand light, that's supposed to, go from red to green occasionally, is not doing it. It's just staying red. Seriously, there's like a whole line lined up at the corner. Nobody can turn left. Everybody else is getting to go.
They want you standing there so you can look over at Walgreens and say, oh, I forgot to pick up something. Maybe that's what it is, for your benefit.
Well, I was kitty corner from there, so maybe it was a Dollar General.
Yeah, Dollar General.
Yeah, Dollar General.
That's the reason why I got all the stop signs for, so you could pause and say, gee, do I need anything from the store right now?
You would think in a town that needs to save money, they'd be like, all right, let's start looking at what we can eliminate.
Yeah, because
How
all
about
those
some stoplights.
Well, another thing is they cut street lights, and then they put newer ones in. I do like the newer ones, but they're supposed to be lower, wattage to run.
LED or whatever.
Yeah,
hey, that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But
there's only about 30% of the lights in this town that don't need to be there.
I mean, the traffic lights, right?
Traffic lights, yeah, traffic lights. The ones
like all the one-way streets we used to have downtown Flint. They did eliminate a couple of them.
There's a whole gob of them around this county that have been set up back in the day when we used to have a heck of a lot higher population, heck of a lot more traffic. And now you've got, trying to get through this town without being on a highway, it's ridiculous because you're constantly stopping for lights and there's nobody there. Nobody there. All right, anyways, getting off the subject here. I was vermiffed at the stoplight in the county plow. Seriously, are the plow guys taking the winter off? Okay, anyways, all right, moving on here. I digress. Let's talk about marijuana. This is cool stuff. This is about autism, and if you aren't aware, autism is a qualifying condition here in Michigan for medical marijuana. And this was a study that was done on autistic people. Specifically, they were gearing the study towards young adults, but I thought this was kind of cool. It's published, I guess this was a recent study out of Israel, cannabis research from 2007, and it gave new evidence to back up those claims. Published the 17th in the journal Nature, the study found that yes, cannabis can relieve some of the symptoms suffered by many autistic people, including seizures, restlessness, and rage attacks. The study, which was called Real Life Experience of Medical Cannabis Treatment in Autism, Analysis of Safety and Efficacy, followed 188 autistic spectrum disorder patients over a 6-month period. It said the subjects were mostly male, 81%, had a mean age of 12.9 years. So obviously the majority of these people were pretty young. 14% of the participants were younger than 5 years old. 70 patients between 6 and 10, and 72 patients between 11 and 18. So there's your range of ages. Their autistic symptoms included restlessness, rage attacks, agitation, speech impairment, cognitive impairment, anxiety, incontinence, depression, and more. It says, although many with autism are being treated today with medical cannabis, there was significant lack of knowledge regarding the safety profile and the specific symptoms that are most likely to improve under cannabis treatment, wrote the study's authors. The aims of the study were straightforward. They were to characterize a patient's population receiving medical cannabis treatment for autism and to evaluate the safety and efficacy of the therapy. In conclusion, it was emphatic. Cannabis in ASD patients appear to be well tolerated, safe, and effective as an option to relieve symptoms associated with ASD, autistic spectrum disorder. So, very cool. And that's really the study in a nutshell. They found that it was effective. Parents reported that cannabis and CBD helped calm their children, helped them focus, helped alleviate those who suffer from seizures, and also helped decrease the frequency of the seizures. So there's very fantastic information here. It says here, many of the subjects in Israel's study were given cannabis oil, which was 30% CBD, 1.5% THC. A 1 month trial, or 1 month into the trial, respondents were asked to rate their quality of life, ranging from very poor to poor, neither nor good, and good to very good, and report side effects to improve a better yardstick for final results. At the end of the 6-month course, 155 subjects of the original 188 were still in active treatment. Others had dropped out or began a different plan, and of the 155 patients, 93 had been assessed through questionnaires. So just more of the general information here. But I think in a nutshell, really what they're trying to say is that, yes, it is safe. It is effective. There are not really any side effects to be concerned with. And all in all, it seems like a viable treatment option for people suffering with autism. So this is wonderful news. It's good to have more information be added to this. And I'm proud to say that Michigan was one of the states that has added autism as a specific qualifying condition. So not just the things that go along with autism, like seizures and anxiety and so on, that were mentioned in the article, but actually autism itself is a qualifying factor. So those people that have seen this be administered to autistic people can certainly, vie for its viability, and it's good to see studies back that up as well. So kind of cool. Good stuff there. This is another article I want to share with you, a little different subject. I know we got a lot of dabbers in the club, and I guess I'm myself, most of you know, I'm not much of a dabber. I just can't take it. I'm a weakling, all right? But I know we got plenty of you iron lungs in the club. My question to you is are you using quartz in your rigs? And I do see a lot of people using, the butane torches. I've even seen some folks go all out with the MAP gas. Now I'm starting to see more and more people talk about a low heat dab. So for you experts in the club, you can discuss this and get back with me, tell me what is really the best manner, what you prefer, so on and so forth. But according to the article here, quartz, which is silicon dioxide, solid and amorphous material comprised of silicon and oxygen, which is similar to glass, and they're distinct in that quartz contains no other materials. So it says, in order to create fused quartz, pure silica sand containing quartz crystals must be melted or fused. The purity gives quartz a high thermal conductivity and is also used in laboratory-grade materials. Quartz is great for low-temperature dabbing, the practice of using reduced temperatures when heating a nail in order to preserve terpenes, flavors, and other things during the sublimation and inhalation process. So in conjunction use of the carb cap or any other device designed to create convection, quartz nails preserve terpenes because they can maintain a lower temperature for a longer period of time before cooling off. So there you go. You should be using quartz, I guess. All right? Tell me what you think. All right? There's an article goes on here. You can check this out on leafly.com. Goes on to talk about different types of dabbing and so on and so forth. And I'm sure you guys are all experts and can tell me all about it. So I won't bore you with any more details. All right? Let's move on here. This is also in the news today. You might be able to check this out for yourself. This is in regards to New York City's Mayor Bloomberg. He was former presidential candidate, pretty big guy. And most of you are probably aware, if you've been watching the podcast, that New York is sort of on the cusp of whether or not they want to legalize cannabis for adult recreational use. They already have a medical marijuana program, albeit it is a very limited program. It is not widespread availability. It's very difficult to get qualified for and even tougher to get access to medication. The types of medications that are available in the system over there are also very limited. So we're talking about a really small margin of the population having access to medicinal cannabis in New York. And so they're obviously pushing for recreational use as most states continue to evolve in their social policies towards cannabis, New York being one of them. But Bloomberg, who's the big cheese in the state, former New York mayor, one-time presidential candidate, was on a radio station, WBNG, and said that taxing and regulating cannabis instead of locking mostly young people of color for it, is perhaps the stupidest thing anybody has ever done. It's quite a comment from an astute politician. Wow. All right, so maybe he doesn't really represent the people in New York any longer. It says here that more dangerously, Bloomberg tied the liberalization of cannabis, which has no lethal overdose level, to America's opioid overdose epidemic, echoing former Attorney General's talking points. He says last year in 2017, 72,000 Americans OD'd on drugs. In 2018, more people than that are ODing on drugs and have OD'd on drugs. And today, incidentally, we are trying to legalize another addictive narcotic, which is perhaps the stupidest thing anybody has ever done. This is a quote from Mr. Bloomberg. So there you go. Basically, yeah, summing up the marijuana industry, the product itself, and into the opioid epidemic, which we have seen countless naysayers continue to lump this in with opioids. Very similar to the way our government has lumped it in from the very beginning in the drug scheduling itself, with having marijuana be scheduled Schedule 1, which has the same schedule as like heroin, another opioid. So continuing to lump this in, even though full well knowing the scientific evidence is fully 100% against them, and people are now effectively using cannabis to get off from these opioids. So in reality, cannabis is quite the opposite effect on the opioid epidemic as to what people like Mr. Bloomberg are trying to say.
I can't stand Bloomberg because he's anti-Second Amendment. Now he just stepped in it with that kind of comment. So I guess he just gives his career politician status, goodbye, because he's alienated both the left and the right in the between by saying those kind of comments. I mean, I'm glad, because they say never interrupt an enemy when they're making a mistake, and he's definitely making a mistake saying that.
I think so, and I do believe that the majority of Americans nowadays are coming to terms and getting educated and finding out the truth about cannabis, and I mean the truth. I'm not talking about like the Cheech and Chong truth or the Nixon truth. I mean right down the center truth. They're finding out that it's doesn't make you crazy. The high that is associated with it is nothing like being drunk or even anything close to that. People are still under control, still able to maintain their physical functions and their mindset, their morals, if you will. And I guess it's just, you can't hide the truth. And people like Bloomberg, who continue to spew these false truths, will only discredit themselves, like John is saying. And so yeah, go ahead, spew it out there, Bloomberg. I think people are going to quit listening to that, and by putting out that type of verbiage, they're probably going to quit listening to whatever else it is you had to say as well. So, all right, moving on here. All right, I'll pull up a different article here. This is from Oregon, and actually we talked about Oregon last week on the podcast, and there was a couple of senators who had submitted a new bill from Oregon, H.R. 420. This is a federal bill, and it is to regulate marijuana and tax it like alcohol. So very similar to the campaign that we just saw happen here in Michigan, being now requested on a federal level by these Oregon senators. And we'll see what happens. We're still waiting for movement on that, more sponsors on that bill, so on and so forth. In the meantime, though, however, these same senators from Oregon have now made a formal request to the FDA in concerns to CBD products. So currently, right now, we're seeing the proliferation across the nation of CBD products. In fact, I was just at a gas station the other day and walked in and saw that they had CBD vaporizing products right there underneath the shelf available for retail sale. We saw last year where we had gas stations and other party stores and the like around Michigan starting to carry CBD products, and these are CBD products that were supposedly attained from hemp, not from medical marijuana, not from recreational marijuana, but from hemp. So, i.e., what this is supposed to imply is that your CBD product does not contain THC, or if it does, it is a very low amount, below a federal threshold of 0.03%. So we're talking minute amounts. However, the FDA has not yet clarified its legality. We've seen it be separated in the U.S. Farm Bill, but then we saw it get turned right back around and be considered a drug by the FDA. So there really isn't clarification on this, even though we are seeing it be readily available to the public. So clearly there's a misnomer going on here. We need to have some clarification. These senators are asking for that. The appeal was sent by Senator Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley. And again, Oregonian senators. And they are urging the head of the FDA to update federal regulations to permit interstate commerce of food products containing a key non-psychoactive ingredient of cannabis, CBD. So we'll continue to see how this works out, but at least the request has been made. Of course, right now the government's still shut down, and they're not going to be doing anything. So they said they actually understood that, gave them a little leeway, and I believe asked them to respond. I got the date here. Give me just a second. Within 30 calendar days of the government reopening. So Merkley and Wyden, senators from Oregon, getting the job done, and hopefully getting some clarification for us on this policy here from the FDA. All right, good stuff. All right, another article I guys wanted to share with you, and I thought this was pretty cool. This is marijuana effects on teen brains. Okay, so we're talking about young adults, developing brains, and what is the effect on marijuana. Certainly we've seen plenty of the naysayers, the prohibitionists talk about the damaging effects of marijuana on the developing mind. Well, this study here actually went and did some actual research to figure out what would that look like. The study looked at brains of 46 14-year-old girls and boys from Ireland, England, France, and Germany, found that teenagers who reported using recreational marijuana just once or twice displayed increased volume on MRI images in numerous brain regions, including emotion-related processing, learning, and forming memories. The results of the study were published Monday in the Journal of Neuroscience. So here we go. It says most people would likely assume that one or two joints would have no impact, so we were curious to study this, and especially to investigate first uses may actually produce brain changes that affect future behavior like subsequent use. This was the lead author of the study and a professor of psychiatry at the University of Vermont School of Medicine in an email that he sent to NBC News. The study does not say what the increased brain matter volume means, but the researchers noted that the enlargement of gray matter contradicts normal adolescent development. At the age which we studied these kids, which was 14, cortical regions are going through a process of thinning, he says, suggesting that this is a sculpting process that makes the brain and its connections more efficient. So, one possibility is that cannabis use has disrupted this pruning process, resulting in larger volumes in the cannabis users. Another possibility is that the cannabis use has led to growth in neurons and in the connections between them. It says it's not the first research to find that cannabis use may cause changes to a teen's brain. A recent study found that teen brains are more vulnerable to the effects of marijuana than alcohol. And in June, the University of Pennsylvania scientists discovered that young people who were using marijuana frequently were more likely than non-users to have slightly lower scores on tests of memory, learning new information, and higher level problem solving and information processing. So let me slow that down a little second. That was a couple of negatives and a couple of positives. First one was slightly lower test on memory and learning new information. So maybe a little bit tougher to comprehend things. However, once they're comprehended, it resulted in higher level problem solving and information processing. So some good, some bad. It says here, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, 32.6% of 10th graders reported using marijuana at least once in their lifetime. And blah, 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 blah. It says here, marijuana has shown considerable use for treating medical conditions, blah, blah, blah. At least some of the benefits are thought to come from cannabidiol, which is CBD, a chemical component of marijuana not known or not thought to produce psychoactive or mind-altering effects. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you because I thought that was kind of cool. When you hear about people talking about marijuana's effects on developing brains, it's not all negative, and I'm certainly not advocating that teens should run out and start using cannabis. But I do want to point this out because there are a lot of teens out there that are using it medicinally, under the recommendation of their physician, probably likely under the recommendation of a couple physicians, because that's what the requirement is to have that here in Michigan. Nevertheless, I think it's good for guardians and parents to understand that they're not throwing their child away by treating their symptoms with cannabis. There's certainly a lot more damaging medications out there that may be prescribed, and I'm not trying to say that they're better or worse than cannabis, but I mean everything has good and positives with it, and obviously this here, with the specific study on brain functions and so on and so forth, good and bad can come from it. So something to consider, something to think about. I want to share it with you guys. I thought it was cool. All right. Last thing I want to share with you guys, and I thought this was kind of interesting, certainly considering the fact that this company is also getting in on the marijuana game. But if you aren't aware, you can look that up. But Anheuser-Busch, which is really actually owned by InBev, it's a humongous beverage company, massive. Carlos Brito, he's the CEO, and he said that the company does not have any data to show that marijuana is hurting beer sales. It says here the North American beer market volume is down by 3% the first months of 2018, and they don't really see that as a sign of marijuana per se. And I'd have to agree. I think that they don't necessarily interfere. You don't see too many people crossing over. Most folks I know that do use cannabis and alcohol are both pretty moderate with using both substances, especially if they're using them together. And in fact, I've found that most folks, if they use cannabis, they are more likely to be more moderate in their alcohol consumption. That doesn't mean that they're not going to consume alcohol, but it means that they're more likely not to get quite so drunk. Now, I will tell you that it can go the opposite way, and you need to be careful if you are using both alcohol and cannabis in conjunction. It is not a good idea to first drink alcohol and then smoke weed. You want to do it the other way around. I'm just telling you this from experience, all right? And, if you already have a good alcohol buzz going on and then you smoke some cannabis, you could go from feeling good to crashing real fast. And that's something that you and your friends, you all need to understand and know, especially for these people out there that are now experimenting with recreational cannabis. Look out for your friends and buddies, okay? Take care of them. Don't let them make stupid decisions. Don't let them get hurt. And, take care of yourselves, of course. So, little tip, all right? But at any rate, Anheuser-Busch CEO Carlos Brito says, no problems on our business here. Cannabis isn't really hurting us. And, in fact, we're investing in cannabis. And as I mentioned or alluded to earlier, Tilray is the company now that is sort of an offshoot of InBev, offshoot of Anheuser-Busch, investing and in fact actually investing right here in Michigan in our medical marijuana market, no doubt with hopes of moving on into the bigger markets as well. But I'm not saying I'm welcoming them with open arms. I don't like Budweiser products. I think they're garbage. But you choose what you want. I'm just sharing the news. All right. All right. That's about it for this week's podcast. I wanted to get you guys the information, get you up to date. I want to tell you thank you for coming out to the G, especially when the weather's not so great. I really appreciate you guys being there every day, making it happen. You are the best source in Michigan for Michigan's patients, period. You are. All right. And please remember us down on February 2nd. Mark your calendars. Get your tickets in advance at the G if you can. Again, open to the public, $30 in advance. Awesome opportunity to see Darren McCarty live. It's going to be a blast. So thanks for joining me this week on the podcast, Genesee County Compassion Club Show. Thanks for John being back in the studio here at All Points TV. Check out other podcasts for other events and information regarding Flint and all other things around the world. Guys, I love you. Drive safe. Be careful this week and catch you next week on the Genesee County Compassion Club Show. See ya!